Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told how to host a radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at a bunch of good new Pokemon cards. Pokemon cards that have the potential to be very, very good. I am not going to sit here and tell you that all of these are guaranteed to be amazing cards or anything stupid like that. What I absolutely am going to sit here and tell you is that all of these cards have the potential to be very good cards and are ones you should definitely be bearing in mind because these could make a difference. Shout out, I should say, as always, to the lovely Antoine Boulet for providing our translations. So with all of that borne in mind, why don't we start having a little bit of a look at Glysaur. Now what we got here is 120 HP, which is actually kind of unfortunate, because that does mean that Rapid Strike Urshifu, which has gotten even better lately, will get you on the bench, which is kind of rubbish, unfortunately. But you are a fighting type Pokemon, so you're hitting weakness on stuff like Arceus V-Star, so, you know, it's not all bad, ladies and gentlemen. It's not all bad. But what we've got here, for 2 fighting energy, flip 4 coins. This attack does 50 damage for each heads. If you flipped 2 or more, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Yes. Because if you think about it, right, assuming a random 50-50 chance, and unless you're cheating, that's what you've got when you flip a coin or roll a dice to simulate flipping a coin, if you flip 4, you would expect that 2 would come up as heads and 2 would come up as tails. So that means you have an expectation, not a guarantee, various different things, but there's an expectation here that you should be getting your paralysis every turn. It is a bit of a shame that this is coming out as we see the rotation of Glimwood Tangle, because obviously being able to reflip would make it very likely, not guaranteed, but very likely that you would flip that double heads. That would be awesome! And 100 plus paralysis is nice. 200 plus paralysis is great. You're hitting a good weakness. I like this. Yes, it's flippy. Yes, the second energy is a bit of a pain. But remember, we've got that gritty pickaxe card coming. That's the one whereby reveal the top card of your deck. And if it's a fighting energy, you attach it to a fighting Pokemon. Otherwise, you draw it. We've got stuff like Galarian Zapdos, which can get energy onto the field. And then it just takes a simple energy switch to get it over to the Pokemon you actually want. So don't worry about the energy. The energy's fine. The issue here is the flippy nature and the fact that everyone's playing a lot of Switch at the moment. If your opponent switches out of this, you're in trouble. Yeah, that's about where we are. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. There are going to be people that don't take this card seriously, and there are going to be people that take this to tournaments, and the former category are going to be very, very frustrated by the latter. Moving on, we got some bats to talk about. We've got ourselves a Crowbar, and this one's interesting to me, right? Because I showed you more than once that the booster pack artwork for Dark Fantasma, this new set, is tripping Zubat. So I assumed there was going to be a Crowbat and a Zubat in there, and obviously there is, and I assumed that it was going to be good. While the Zubat and the Golbat are both vanilla cards, they're not good, although the art on that Golbat, it's not one of my favourite artists, it's just a beautiful, beautiful card. So we kind of expect the Crobat to be good. It's not a Radiant Pokemon, it's not a Pokemon V or a V-Star, it's just an ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill Crobat. Is it worth plastering it all over the booster pack, or was it just on the booster pack because it looked good? Well, what we've got here is 130 HP, which admittedly is slightly higher and therefore slightly better. And you are weak to fighting, which is annoying because you share a weakness of all that fighting weak stuff, which is kind of annoying. But you are hitting for weakness against stuff like Mew V Max, so once again, it's not all bad. But what we've got here is 1 attack for a single energy, 50 damage plus poison. Nobody really cares. It's fine. And don't forget, if you're playing around with poison, you have got that Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, which will help you out very much indeed to put extra damage counters on between turns, or in the Pokemon checkup phase as it's actually known nowadays. But it's fine, and 70 for single energy is alright, but not on a Stage 2 Pokemon, and we do need to remember this is a Stage 2 Pokemon, so I'm not really loving it. But if you can manipulate the ball state well enough, I am very much loving the second attack. The second attack is for 3 colorless energy, and it deals 30 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon, active or benched. And 3 energy, 30 damage on a Stage 2, not good. However, if you KO a Pokemon using this attack, take 2 more prize cards. Oh. Yeah, now we're rolling, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are absolutely rolling. It's an awkward one to use, and I'm not going to argue for a second that it isn't. It's a very awkward one to use. It's a stage 2. It takes 3 energy. You've got to find a Pokemon with 30 HP or less remaining. And there aren't many that are that weak, so you'll probably have to deal some damage and get it working. It's not easy. However, when it works, you're taking 3 prizes off a small Pokemon. Yes. Absolutely yes. And let's face it, we've seen Yoga Loop work. We have absolutely seen Yoga Loop work. That is the one whereby you drop 2 damage counters, and then if you take a KO, you take an extra turn. In a world where Medicham can work, so can this. Although we do need to mention Manaphy. Manaphy blocks damage, not damage counters. So you can Yoga Loop around Manaphy. You can't do this because you are doing damage. That is an important distinction. But my point here very simply is, you can make this work. Not to mention we've got the Galarian Cassola from Fusion Strike. It's a stage 1 for a single energy. Put a basic Pokemon V from your opponent's discard pile onto their bench. If you do put damage counters on that Pokemon until it's got 30 remaining, yeah. Then next turn you attack with Crowbar, you take 4 prizes, which is the same as KOing a Pokemon V 2 turns in a row. Yes. Obviously, yes. Yeah, I'm giving it 4 Wassies. It's super awkward. I ain't going to argue for a second it isn't. It's clearly super awkward. But it's the kind of super awkward that makes me go, might be worth it. It just might be worth it. Or I might be doing that thing again where I see weird cards and go, hey, that could work. And then it just doesn't. Fingers crossed, eh? Fingers crossed. But we've got one more Pokemon we can take a little bit of a look at here before we finish with a couple of trainers, and it is Hisuian Goodra. Now, the 160 HP on Stage 2 is quite nice, although, let's be clear, we've been seeing that since Base Sun and Moon, so let's not get too excited about it. And let's definitely not get excited about the attack. Free energy, 140, and it's a water and a metal and a colourless. No! Obviously not. There's a lot to not like about this, alright? But you know what we can like about this? We can like the ability Steel Shelter. Ignore all damage done by your opponent's Pokemon V's attacks to your basic Pokemon that have any metal energy attached. Yes. And this is exactly the kind of card that could absolutely just wreck tournaments. Now remember, when we say Pokemon V, we include Pokemon V Max, V Star, and I don't always say this, so let me say it now, V Union. They're all included. And right now, a lot of decks, not all obviously, but a lot of decks are very heavily reliant on Pokemon V, V Max, V Star, and V Union. So what that means is that if you can get this rolling, you're just winning. Don't forget, we got Bronzong that can move metal energy around the field, so you can make sure your metal energy is always spread amongst your Pokemon to give them all that protection. And the thing here that's awesome is that your opponent can't just use Boss's Orders or something along those lines to gust around it, because as long as you've got metal energy on all of your Pokemon, they are all going to be getting the protection here. So it doesn't really matter what your opponent does, they will have to have a good non-V attacker. And they might, incidentally. They might have a good non-V attacker. And if they do, let's hope you've got a plan B. I don't think you rock up to a tournament with no plan B, just assuming that you're going to beat everybody because they're all playing Pokemon V. That doesn't seem terribly sensible. But I absolutely do think that this is one that could absolutely work, and this could give you a lot of protection, and that is awesome. Because it doesn't even need to be a metal Pokemon. It's just any Pokemon with metal energy attached. And it doesn't say basic metal energy. It says metal energy. Which means that if you've got stuff like Fusion Strike energy, as an example, on your Fusion Strike Pokemon, well, that provides every type of energy. Oh, look. Now you've got metal energy. I would say Aurora energy, but that should have rotated out by the time this comes around. I am sorry. But we've got cards that provide multiple kinds of energy. We've had them in the past. We'll have them again in the future. They will give you that protection as well. And what you're forcing your opponent to do here is have a plan B. And a lot of these V and V Max and V Star decks don't have a great plan B. Sure, they might be playing, a copy of Galarian Moltres, and you might have to navigate that for a couple of turns. But time you've knocked that out a couple of times, they're back to where they were before, and that's kind of my point. And that's why I love this so gosh darn much. It's a stage 2, it's super awkward, like so many of these cards. But the fact of the matter is that your opponent then has to use a non-Pokemon V, unless they're playing stuff like Crushing Hammer and can get rid of the energy, in which case it's a whole new ball game. But my point is, this could absolutely work. I'm giving this again between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. If you can find somebody who can play this well enough and get this into play easily enough, I like this very, very much indeed. Now, we have one more supporter card that we haven't talked about yet from this particular set, and it's the Misfortune Sisters. And, right, if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about here. But in the post-game, when you've done everything and you're running around, completing your Pokedex and all of that, the fact that you randomly just run into these and have fun battles and get a bunch of money, I really enjoyed that. The first couple of times it happened, I was like, wait, is this a thing? And they seem to move around where they are, and I really liked that. It was one of my favourite things about the game. A little thing, but it helped out very nicely, I thought. And what we've got here is a supporter card that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and discard any number of item cards you find there. Although, honestly, right, you should probably just get them all, because item cards are generally hard to recover and don't work from the discard pile. And this is nice. But a bunch of you at this point are going to be going, hang on a second. Sounds a bit familiar. Sounds a little bit like a card what was that card we had a little while ago? And the answer is, it's the Alolan Muk from Team Up. Now, when you played from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you looked at the top 6 cards of your opponent's deck and discarded any number of item cards. This is that -1 card as a supporter card, not an evolution ability. And I really like it. And the fact of the matter is, you can use this as just a random thing, just to try and hurt your opponents. But then there's other decks which are going to love it. We all know that Sander at this point, Sander Wojcik, plays all of those annoying decks, the disruption control decks. Saw him place quite highly in Liverpool and then again at the EUIC, using stuff like Eldegoss to loop. Yet looping a supporter card with Eldegoss basically means your opponent's not going to have any item cards. We know that there's decks around there like Durant that love milling. Well, this is a supporter card that could end up milling a bunch of cards for you. And it's not just that you're milling. It's not just that you're getting your opponent closer to decking out, which is the win condition of Durant and the win condition of Eldegoss. The thing here is that every time you get rid of an item card, you hurt your opponent's deck. You're not just slowing them down a little bit, you're slowing them down a lot, because now they've got fewer outs in their deck, because some of their outs are item cards, they don't have those item cards anymore. Or you're just plain taking away options. I like this. This is a 4 Wossie card. And it's not going to be for every deck. It's going to be for decks like Durant and like Eldegoss Loop and things of that nature. It is not going to work for everybody, and I'm not here for a second to tell you that it will. And that's not the point. The point of this is that this is going to work in some decks. Some decks are going to love it. And in those particular decks, it is going to be a phenomenal card. So we can then finish off with a card that I probably should have talked about the other day, but didn't, so let's fix that now. We've got Box of Disaster, and I don't want to boast, but I can totally read the Japanese in the title of this card, and I like that very much indeed. What did it actually do? If the Pokemon V this card is attached to has full HP and is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. And this is a weird card to me because I cannot figure out if I like this or not. I actually really like it when you pair it with the Miss Magius we showed you the other day. That's the one whereby if it's got full HP and is KO'd by damage from an attack, you place 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. It's brilliant. Except Miss Magius isn't a Pokemon V, so you can combine these 2 cards, and that's actually super annoying. Because placing 16 damage counters when you get KO'd, that I can get on board with. That's not the way we're working here. And I just find that that's basically kind of where we end up. I think if you know your Pokemon V are getting 1-hit KO'd, obviously this can be quite nice, 8 extra damage. We played Choice Belt to do 3 extra damage counters, 30 extra damage. This is 8 damage counters, 80 damage. Obviously this is good, but it's not in your control. It's in your opponent's control. Your opponent can decide whether to attack into it or not. Your opponent can gust around to attack a bench Pokemon. Your opponents can try and make sure that they're attacking with something that can take the 8 damage counters. And at the end of the day, even if this works perfectly, you're giving up 2 prizes in order to use it. And that's my real problem here. It's pretty much the same thing I said about Mismagius. I don't think I am getting enough benefit for what I'm giving up for this to work. And most of the time, I'd rather just use Choice Bout to get the extra 30 damage when I know I'm going to need it. I think it's a decent card, and I absolutely think some people are going to play it. But I think it's an occasional tech in really specific circumstances rather than a good card. Although, I gotta mention here, Honchkrow V. This is the one time where this becomes really good. Because remember, Honchkrow V can have 4 tools attached to it. Which means if your opponent takes a KO when you've got full health, they take 320 damage, 32 damage counters. Clearly that's amazing. But also, all your opponent needs to do is do like 10 damage with something, drop a damage counter, and then attack when you've not got full HP, and they can get around it. So, I still don't think it's great. I still think it's too easily played around, but I do think it is at least a fun little combo. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you what you think about this, although I do want to actually quickly mention, we talked about Hisui and Gudra. The Gumi has wonderful art by Kato, who is crushing it this set, and that makes me very happy. There's no Okacheke artwork and only one Haiganasuke. So, you know, for me, Kato is carrying this set, although there's other brilliant artwork like that Golbat I showed you. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about all of these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.